Big thank you to Harry from How to Cut. Check him out on his Instagram page. Does some really nice work. And in fact, I've got a fair few videos of these to watch to get a bit more knowledge myself. So we left Braintree at 4:30 this morning. Clear skies, crisp, silent, pitch darkness, stars are out, it's beautiful. And then got to Birmingham just before 7, see the sun come up. Beautiful day, beautiful weather. So we've got the top section of this done and started setting out some of the rafters on the side to see how the patterns are going to work. So day one in Birmingham. Okay, so what we're going to do today is start getting our rafters in. We want to get our triples for the dormers. But what I want to do is make sure that we have the right window height, the size of the window, and I want to see how the pitch works with the main roof because it can't be any higher. So it's okay being the same or a little bit lower. So we're going to work it out now before we put the triples in. Do you change the pitch slightly? Do you bring the window size in a touch? Do you bring the height down? Can you lower the window? What are all the things that you can do to achieve it? Usually there's ways around it. You keep it from various different angles. So that's what we're going to find out today before we put the triples in. Right, stills are absolutely spot on. A couple of things I do is check for levels. Put a timber across from a flat roof, get level, do the same the other end, laser them, ping lines through, get all the hangs the same. But here, absolutely spot on, didn't need to, so just worked to steel. What we also do is check stills down to the plate to see what differences is. Because what we want to do is when you put the hips in, you don't want any pitches changed, especially with open eaves, it throws hips out. So we've checked that everything's spot on and you can allow for a little bit in your packing out your webs to make it all work. It's quite important. A big job like this is really hard to get spot on. And I've got to say, pretty good, very good. So this section of the roof is important because we've got a roof that goes right down to the bottom, all the way down to the first floor. So I've packed the web out a little bit more, and then the rafter, I've put a dummy rafter in there, and I want it sitting 12 mil above the steel. So I need to keep the pitch, and I need to keep the roofing paper above that steel. And if we get this section done here, and put a little stud wall through here, we can pull lines all the way through to the bottom, just double checking our pitch is spot on. That way, at least better than brickies, can get their plate down at the bottom. And that's another section set out and ready. It'd be really nice to start getting some of these in today. Once I start setting these V-luxes out, I can get that hip in, do the other end, start filling a section at a time. Okay, so this section of the roof is governed by where the dormers go, but I've tried working it out, spreading the feet as best as I can, because it's open eaves, so I want to make it look right. So I've done the triples, but I've only done one towel sticking out for the feet, and I've cut them slightly shorter on 2 more. So it's only 1 foot coming out, so it sort of looks consistent as best as what I can, and I've tried to get the spacing correctly. So Ben kindly left out the smaller joists at the bottom so I can position them so I can tie it all in as best I can. We put a double timber round as a pole plate. It just gives a bit more movement to play around so we can get a pattern set up. And then what we're going to do is work that all the way around the building, and then we can keep our pattern consistent all the way around. Rafter feet. So what we've done is we've notched it over the brickwork for 2 reasons. One, there's a full brick there, and instead of having to see a rip of the brickwork there, but also 8x2 on the plumb cut was rather big, and it's all open eaves. So we've cut it down to like a 6x2, and it's enough to get the fall of the gutter, and it looks pretty in proportion. So what we're going to do today is we're going to put a row of noggins through on a plate. That will stiffen this up and stop the twist. And I'm going to come down 25 mil so there's an airflow going all the way. That will keep these rafters nice and straight, and then they can just get bricked up in between. When it comes to the hip, it's a lower pitch, so what you've got to remember is to leave more meat on it. But that's that with fascia and soffit. We have a perfect hip. Now, if the hip is slightly too high, and that is the scenario for both sides, it is just a bit off the C-cut and maybe a little bit off the plumb cut, take it a bit further in. Could be from the plate up, could be the plumb cut up, same the rafter line up here. So check that. But sometimes you might get it right one side and not the other side. And let's say it's 10 mil. You take 10 mil off it and it's too low the other side. The key is always to do half. So for example, let's just say it's too high on this plane by 10 mil. You take 5 mil off, that affects the other side 5 mil. But what you do is you take it out, that will lower it this side and it'll work in your favour the other side. So even if it's the other way around, half whatever that height is, and that should work out perfect. Let me know how you get on. Started pitching these rafters in onto our wall and we realised that at the top they started lifted up slightly. 4 rafters, 10 mil, as you go on another 4, by the time you get to the end it's about 50 mil, and yeah, I can get over the furrings. But what we've done is we changed it, moved the wall out, we checked it with this wall here, this pole plate here. You've got an old building and a new build, so you're expected to get thrown out somewhere. So we was more concerned about getting it right inside, or at least splitting the difference as best as we can. When it comes to doing any rooms here, you don't want to start throwing out on tile floor, laminate floor, anything like that. And yes, you can move the stud wall, but when you move the stud wall and you've got the pitch and roof, what you find is it'll start changing plasterboard lines and it really throws out. You have a cabinet or bed or something. So it's these little things you've got to think about. The only thing it did cause is a slight difference on my hip. I had my hip in originally. So what we did is we put a line through and we changed the depth of the bird mouth just to blend them in. So now we've got a square room as much as what we can, and it works with the roof. Right, this is how I do my hips. As you can see, the hip goes straight down and I work out where the building is. So I know where that's going to go by pulling lines through. And I've got to cut that back, allowing for my double hip. And then once I've cut it back on the ridge, I'll put my rafter in and just run it through to this point, so it all ties it in. So there are a couple of ways you could do it. You can either do it, the ridge goes straight through, run your hip into the ridge, and then you can cut the ridge where your rafters go and tie it into it. So imagine your ridge coming through, hitting one of your rafters or your jack rafters. I like to do it a bit differently. I like to run my ridge through, cut it where my hip is, run the hip into the rafter, and that ties it in nice and solid. If you've got that roof that's overextending and you're trying to cut the feet for the fascia and soffit, it does depend on how that plate is regards to the cavity. But one way of doing it, let's say you've got 200 off the brickwork level, how do you get the rest? So what I would do is, once I've got my 200 plumb cut up, I'll do the same from the plate up, or in my case, pole plate, measure that distance. Now, when you come to this end, plumb up from the pole plate, or the plate, level down to that point, and as long as the cavity and plate's in line, but you can allow for that, it's a good indicator, and that should help you get them feet.